You wake up and you cannot move. Your eyes are open. The room is dark. You try to sit up and nothing happens. You try to speak and no sound comes out. Your body is not yours anymore. It's locked. And then you feel it. Something is in the room with you. Not a sound, not a shadow, a presence. Something standing just out of sight. Something watching. And you cannot turn your head to see it. This happens to roughly 8% of the population on a regular basis. Over 600 million people worldwide know exactly what this feels like. And every single culture that has ever encountered this phenomenon has independently arrived at the same conclusion. Something evil is visiting you in your sleep. The clinical term is sleep paralysis with persistent REM atonia. Your body paralyzes itself every night during REM sleep so you don't act out your dreams. That's normal. That's supposed to happen. What isn't supposed to happen is your brain waking up while the paralysis is still switched on. You're conscious. Your body is frozen. And because your brain is still partially in REM mode, you don't just lie there. You dream while your eyes are open. The room is real. The paralysis is real. And whatever your dreaming mind projects into that room is real too. Nearly every single episode includes hallucinations, not vague impressions. Full sensory experiences that fall into 3 distinct categories. And they escalate. The first is the intruder, a presence in the room, sometimes seen, sometimes just felt. A shape in the doorway, a shadow at the foot of the bed, something standing in the corner that disappears when you finally break free. The second is the sensation of movement, floating, rising off the mattress, being dragged sideways across the bed, spinning through the air. Your body is still, but you feel yourself moving and you cannot stop it. The third is the one people never forget. The incubus. Pressure on your chest. Something sitting on you, leaning into you, crushing the air out of your lungs. You feel its weight. You feel it pressing down and you cannot breathe and you cannot scream and you cannot move. But here's where it gets disturbing. Because this is not one culture's nightmare. This is everyone's nightmare. And they all gave it the same name. In medieval Europe, it was the old hag, a witch or demon that sat on your chest while you slept paralyzed and aware. In Islamic tradition, it's al-Jathum, a jinn that climbs on top of the sleeper and presses down. In Japan, it's kanashibari, being bound by invisible metal. Spiritual paralysis inflicted by vengeful spirits. In Thailand, it's Phi-am, a ghost that lies across your body. In Newfoundland, they still call it the old hag. In Igbo culture in Nigeria, it's Ogun Oru, a spiritual attack by a hostile entity. In Scandinavia, it's the Mara, a malevolent being that rides your chest in the darkness. The English word nightmare literally comes from this. Night. Mara. The creature that visits you while you sleep. Different languages, different religions, different continents, no contact, the same experience. The same figure, the same crushing weight, the same paralysis, the same terror. Now the scientific explanation is that the human brain shares a universal architecture. When REM sleep malfunctions, the threat detection system fires without sensory input to calibrate it, so your brain fabricates the worst possible scenario. A predator, an attacker, something in the room that wants you gone. It's not that different cultures saw the same demon. It's that all human brains under the same conditions generate the same hallucination. That's the science. And it's convincing, until you sit with it. Because the science explains why the brain generates a threat. It does not explain why the threat feels specifically intentional. People don't just sense a shape. They sense being watched, being targeted. They feel that whatever is in the room is aware of them and has chosen to be there. That specificity doesn't come from a random neural misfire. A researcher named David Hufford spent decades documenting this. He called it the experience core. The idea that the fundamental structure of sleep paralysis is too consistent across cultures to be explained by culture alone. The hallucinations match too precisely. The intruder is always an intruder. The pressure is always pressure. The presence is always malevolent. Always. His conclusion was that something about this experience exists prior to cultural interpretation, something all humans are tapping into. Whether that something is shared neurology or something else depends entirely on who you ask. And that's where this gets genuinely dangerous. Because studies have shown that the way you interpret sleep paralysis directly changes how often it happens to you. People who believe they are being attacked by a supernatural entity experience more frequent episodes, more severe episodes, longer episodes. The fear of the experience creates the conditions for the experience to repeat. It's a closed loop. You believe something evil came for you in the night. That belief produces anxiety. That anxiety disrupts your REM architecture. The disrupted sleep triggers another episode, and now you have proof that something really is after you. The meaning you assign to the experience literally controls how often it occurs. Believing in the demon summons the demon. This isn't folklore, this is in the clinical literature. There's also the question of why some people and not others. The known triggers are sleep deprivation, sleeping on your back, irregular sleep schedules, high stress, and trauma. But two people with identical sleep profiles can have completely different outcomes. One never experiences it. The other wakes up every week with something standing over the bed. And then there are the reports that the clinical models can't account for. People who say the entity spoke to them, told them things, showed them things they couldn't have known. Those reports exist in every culture too. They don't fit the neural misfire framework. They don't fit anywhere. So here's what's actually hiding in plain sight. The real mystery of sleep paralysis isn't what causes it. The mechanism is documented. The real mystery is why every civilization that ever encountered this looked at the same experience and decided independently that something evil was in the room with them. Not a dream. Not a hallucination. Something real. Something that wanted them to know it was there. You can call that a neurological artifact. You can call it a demon. But the fact that you've already chosen which one it is proves the point. Your interpretation will shape your next encounter, if you have one. And the data says you might. 600 million people already know what it feels like to be awake and paralyzed while something stands in the dark and watches. The question isn't whether sleep paralysis is real. The question is whether what you see during it is just your brain or something your brain is letting through. What do you think the figure in the room actually is? Let me know in the comments. And if you want more investigations into the things hiding in plain sight, subscribe and turn on notifications. The signal is never lost.